Welcome, 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 friends. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by Coach Stark Homes. In the market for a new home? If so, get a hold of Coach Stark today at CoachStarkHomes.com. I'm Johnny Venerable. It's Senior Bowl week. We've tapped in Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, subbing in today. Bo Brock, Damon Dog, en route to Mobile, Alabama. So I had to get my fellow Cardinal podcast host from across the pond to come join us today. Mr. Clancy, how are we doing on a Monday?
Good, man. I appreciate you having me. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, I'm fired up. So we have done podcasts together. Typically, Bo is around, maybe Blake Murphy once upon a time, but I don't think you and I have ever done a podcast just simultaneously one-on-one. Is that true, you think?
I guess so. No better time than now, Johnny.
That's right. Senior Bowl week, a lot to break down. Everybody crushing it already in the chat. Drop a like on this video. Of course, become a diehard. Go PHNXCardinals.com. Again, boots on the ground. Damon Dog, Bo Brock en route to Mobile. We will be bringing you sights and sound all week long, and they'll join us the rest of this week. But I get to talk to my man Alex about Championship Sunday. And I think, Alex, it's in the show title. It provided clarity as to who probably are the two best remaining teams in the NFL. But it also, in my opinion, provided clarity on like what the Cardinals should be doing come free agency. Now, I know you have a different take and you've got a different player in mind. But I don't know, man. When I see Justin Madubuike from the Baltimore Ravens and the destruction he put forth, albeit in a loss against Kansas City, and the fact he's only 26 years old, I saw that yesterday. I'm like, if the Ravens let him go, number one, shame on them. And number two, the Cardinals better be ready to open the checkbook because they have nothing that even closely resembles that player for Baltimore.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating. Like, it would have been wildly different if the Ravens had won. You know, it's just like, okay, so you're going to run everybody back next year no matter what. This is it. You got your quarterback. You're going to go to the Super Bowl. You're probably going to go to multiple Super Bowls, rinse and repeat. And then you have veterans that come in like they've always done. But now it's like, well, they've paid Lamar. So does that force their hand to bring everybody back at this point? Is it like, well, we got our guy now, so we've got to kind of have this cocoon around him like they have up until this point? Or is it just like, well, let's see what happens and just go let everybody else test free agency because he's going to get paid and the Ravens would be dumb if they let him go. But, I mean, I just don't – there's no world where they blow it up, right? There's no world where they blow it up.
Well, and they're going to lose. They're going to lose their. It sounds like their defensive coordinator potentially could be the next head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He's interviewing tomorrow morning. I think if they lose him, that could be a nice opportunity for the Cardinals to have an inside track on a free agent that no longer has his coordinator. Listen, at the end of the day, it's like if he hits free agency, the Cardinals. There's no excuse for the Cardinals not to be in on him. Like he checks every box of what they need. He checks age. We've got a graphic here, metrics, statistics, everything. They have nothing like him. And that's why I think like I'm still very much of the mindset, Alex, like I'll believe it when I see it, right? When it happens, awesome. If like I just see it like predetermined, like PFF and everybody saying, no, he's going to hit the open market. How can you allow that to happen if you're Baltimore?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they've been doing it for so long there, and they've been so close for so long that it's just that. Well, one thing is, I always coined the movie Rockstar, where there's just a different lead singer. It was Mark Wahlberg, and it's like it's going to sound the same. Doesn't matter who it is, it's going to sound the same. So with that, they draft his replacement. He's cheaper. He was a third-round pick anyways. I think he went 70 or 71 overall.
Yep.
This is what Baltimore does. So on the flip side, it's like you've got Patrick Queen. You traded for Roquan Smith. You've got one of the best secondaries in football, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, etc. Why not just draft a dude? They've got help elsewhere where they don't necessarily need him for that defense to be as great as it was. He was a main cog, but he wasn't the only reason why. You know, he was Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt with all of the Georgia running linebackers behind him when Georgia won the national championship. You know, so he was one of many. He wasn't the only one. So I could see that would be why maybe they let him walk.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. They've invested already heavily, Steve Keim, very Steve Keim-esque, into their inside linebacking core, both with premium positions traded away for Roquan Smith. Patrick Queen was a first rounder, and then they've invested. They paid Roquan Smith. So we've got a free agent profile here of Justin Madubuike. And I mean, I again, I'll believe it when I see it. 6'3", 305, 13 sacks, not as a career. No. That was this year. It was a career high, 5 sacks last year. So we really put it all together this year, and what ended up being, a fairy tale season up until yesterday for Baltimore. Made the Pro Bowl this year, second team All-Pro. Like legitimately checks every box for the Cardinals. 26 years old, will be 27. So you assume you pay him over the course of a 4 or 5 year deal, you're getting his peak years. And then if you have to overpay when he's 30, 31, so be it. Hello, welcome to free agency. So I look at this, Alex, and I'm like, okay, the defensive line, worst in the NFL, personnel-wise. I think they were coached up absolutely by Gannon and company. You have somebody else in mind as it relates to who the Cardinals should target. Not that you're anti-Madubuike, but you believe that there's another player that could potentially, I think, has a better chance of being available than the Baltimore Ravens star defensive lineman based on his age alone.
Yeah, and the interesting part, whoever they sign as a big-name free agent is automatically going to be the best defensive player the Cardinals have. So you're going to have that star power immediately, and you'll get paid like it, but, give your Madubuike and Jalen Thompson, whatever. The young star who comes in, regardless of position, corner, pass rusher, interior defensive line, is going to be the best player on the team on that side of the ball. Now, my name, because he's already gotten paid and because he had a contract dispute going into this season, is Chris Jones. Now, Chris Jones is 29, okay? We know that interior defensive linemen, guys with their hand in the dirt, guys who stand up outside, depending on scheme, can play beyond, okay? Aaron Donald is still playing at elite level at 32. With that, he's going to garner a lot of money, but nobody's paying him $30 million a year as a 30-year-old defensive lineman. So that the Cardinals, and this is why I've had, on my show, I've had people root for the Chiefs to win. If they win a Super Bowl, he's gone. He's won, 3? He doesn't need to be there anymore. Or 2. I don't know if he was there for the first one. I think he was. That's it. You don't need to prove anything else. Go get paid. Go do something else. Go build something else. And I think that would benefit the Cardinals greatly also, obviously depending on number and depending on if the Chiefs want to tag him or not, which is what the most likely scenario would be, I think, regardless of outcome of the Super Bowl.
I will never complain if the Cardinals pursued that route. While I think it's unlikely given his age, I've also been of the mindset, Alex, like, number one, free agency, you have to be willing to spend what it takes. Defensive linemen typically don't reach free agency like this. Like, that's why I'm skeptical. Madubuike is going to hit at 26, 27. Usually it's like you got to roll the dice on guys who are later and have a little bit more mileage. He's still an elite player. I mean, you watch yesterday's game, and I know Lamar didn't play well, but it's like you watch that game. Cardinals could have had Lamar Jackson and Chris Jones, and they chose Josh Rhodes and Robert Kimdiche. I mean, think about that. Had an ample shot in the same drafts, respectfully. Rosen over Jackson, Kimdiche, a couple picks later, Chris Jones. Like, that happened. So I'm with you. Like, he's a tone center. You'd have to get him 100% committed that it's not just cashing checks and sitting back. And Gannon and Ossenfort would have to vet him. But, like, maybe that market plays in your hand where he's like, okay, I know I'm not going to get a 4 or 5 year deal. What if I could get a surplus of money in a 2 to 3 year deal? And we can front load it with a bunch of guarantees. And okay, Chris Jones, go kick ass and take names for us for the next 2 seasons. Cement your legacy here out west, with the Arizona Cardinals, a market that you're not super familiar with. Help us continue this rebuild. If you could spin it like that to both parties, I would be open for it. Especially, like, we think we know Cardinals are going to eventually draft a defensive lineman within, couple premium picks, first 3 rounds, hopefully. Maybe you say, okay, we'll get Byron Murphy II, the kid out of Texas, somebody like that to come be the heir apparent. Like, it's not my first choice, but I would never sit here doing a podcast saying like, oh, I'm not excited about Chris Jones. So, but I think like we're in the ballpark very much of like, this is the sandbox, Alex, that they have to be playing in.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that the Cardinals, if they have another offseason and draft like they did this past offseason, even though they punted during free agency, obviously, this isn't going to be you must overpay players to come play in Arizona. Correct. And I think what Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort and the coordinators have done is shown this is big boy football now. The last 4 years and the 6 years before that, that's not this. This is Arizona Cardinals in name only. Michael Bidwell has taken a step back, it seems. Let Monti Ossenfort do what he does. Let us show you that this is different. And yeah, maybe you get a little extra cheese. Maybe you give him J.J. Watt contract with an extra $4 or $5 million a year because Chris Jones is worth it. And I know he's expensive. But overall, regardless of what they do in free agency and in the draft, it's going to make this team better. They just need to pick what path they want to take. And especially in free agency, which will open up, the ideas and the clarity for what they're going to do in the draft, namely in the top, 6 picks.
It's about the guaranteed money in the years. Like I get it. Like people in the chat anti Chris Jones because of how old he is.
Yeah.
But let me just ask you this. Emily's saying, I don't think he'd want to come to Arizona. I don't think he's the, JG type, old and expensive. All that could be true. Here's what is also true. Cardinals are going to try to make the playoffs next year. And you're a better team with Chris Jones on your defensive line in an attempt to make the playoffs than not. And it used the comparison of J.J. Watt. And I think part of why J.J. Watt was acquired was Vance Joseph and Cliff Kingsbury could not hold people accountable. So they had to get number 99 to do it. I think you could just get Chris Jones, just come here and be a tone setter on our defensive line. Don't worry about anything else. And I think he could do that. And again, if you can get him on a 2 to 3 year contract, go look at, if you haven't already, everybody in the chat, everybody listening at home, overthecap.com, the Cardinals financial commitments in 2025. I think we vetted it on last week's show. Paris Johnson Jr. is like a top 3 player on his rookie contract. They have no financial commitments to anybody. So the biggest deterrent of signing a Chris Jones typically would be, oh, well, maybe you wouldn't be able to pay Trey McBride. No, you have no money committed to anybody. So this is the time. It's almost kind of like Keim has set you up for failure time after time. But what he also did was he didn't draft anybody worthy of an extension outside of maybe Trey McBride, right? So if you think that way and you're already paying Kyler Murray, this is kind of your one get out of jail free card, Alex. If you're Ossenfort, you can splurge in free agency one time, maybe 2 times, and then go draft and develop, pick your spots, be the Packers, be the Chiefs, whatever you want to do. But you need to supplement talent. And this defensive line in a division with San Francisco and the LA Rams needs wholesale changes.
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way, the Cardinals need jet fuel for the next 2 years.
Yep.
They need something. They need a quick, calculated fix to skyrocket the talent level on this team, as you mentioned. I know Chris Jones, 29, it's not ideal. And he's just an example of a guy. It could be a corner.
Yeah.
It could be a pass rusher. Nowadays, you can get veteran pass rushers like the Justin Houston package. 1 year, $6 million, 1 year, $7 million. Jason Pierre-Paul. You can get not guys specifically, but guys like that a few years younger where you can supplement this defense and actually put some talent onto it. They're going to have to overspend for a name this offseason. We don't know what position it's going to be. Could be offense, could be defense. We have no idea. But they're going to have to do it. And why not get a guy, the 2 that we've mentioned in the first segment, could be a lot worse, and you have to pay him what? $7, $8, $10 million more than what he's worth. And with what you mentioned, 2025, the Cardinals are going to be atop every list with cap space and flexibility.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up, producer Jacob. This is something that we addressed last week that Damon made for us, and I just wanted to reference it quickly today. PFF did projections for defensive line, and look at some of these contracts. Like Chris Jones, 4 years, averaging $30 million per year. That's not a sandbox the Cardinals would want to play in. But if that number comes down, right, if it goes down to 3 years and maybe $27 million per year, maybe that's a conversation. You front load it, pay him $35 million the first year. Who cares? Same thing with Madubuike. If there's a world in which Madubuike makes less money than Chris Jones as a 26-year-old, that's a sandbox the Cardinals need to be playing in. I'm a big advocate in Leonard Williams. I think he's been a good player on some middling teams. He's been around the block. Seattle thought he had a really good year, but guess what? Their defensive line coach just left. Their defensive coordinator is gone. Pete Carroll is gone. Leonard Williams is going to be available if the Cardinals want to sign him. He is not being re-signed tomorrow in Seattle. So looking at this list, Alex, it's do any of these names that we broke down last week jump off to you that, okay, this is something where the Cardinals immediately get better and it's cost effective?
I mean, unfortunately, my most favorite name on that list is Christian Wilkins, but the Dolphins would be insane to not bring him back. Sure. Culture guy. He may, if you ever come and join the Cardinals, he may trump DJ Humphries as the best interview, in the last decade. He's a character. He's a personality. Yeah. Players love him, and he's an absolute baller. The thing is, no, Chris Jones at $30 million, of course not. That's just not something that the Chiefs aren't
I
going
don't
to
know
pay
if
him.
anybody's
They
doing
almost,
that, by the way. I don't know if
sorry?
anybody's doing that.
No, nobody's doing it. It's ridiculous. Now, Danielle Hunter, maybe, but he's up and down. Like, the Cardinals don't need to go sign the most expensive guy. They just need to get a couple guys who are good at football on the defensive line. Like, and I don't, that's not a backhanded, anything towards the roster wasn't constructed defensively to be elite this year by any stretch. So it doesn't have to be super splashy. It doesn't necessarily have to be cost effective for this year. They just need to completely rebuild everything that's been broken. And that was step one last year. And now it's step two. It's actually infusing talent in necessary spots.
I follow me on this analogy. It's like if you're building a home and you have to house your family in the short term, you're going to put your family up at a nice hotel where they're comfortable, where there's an all-inclusive buffet, right? Maybe there's a pool for the kids, and that's going to cost money while you're building your house. And that's what free agency is. It's I have to go spend on the defensive line while I build the infrastructure of our team and our defensive line through the draft. And it's going to take 1 to 2 years. It's going to take 6 to 8 months to build our house. But I want to make sure my family, I want to make sure Kyler Murray and Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, everybody's comfortable in the meantime that we're setting ourselves up for success. We're not going to go, live in a, with all due respect, a cardboard box or something. Like, I want to make sure people are comfortable. We can afford it. And guess what? The Cardinals can't afford it, but they need to be creative. Now, this is a creative recommendation here. Don, $1.99 super chat. Trade for Jeffery Simmons. How about it? So that's the former defensive line for Ossenfort. He's currently with Tennessee. Now, he got a contract extension in 2023, but they are seemingly blowing it up with their coaching staff. Now, Ron Carthon, did he do that extension when he got there? That's an interesting point, Alex, for a team that is rebuilding. He was a multi-Pro Bowler. He's like Madubuike, only 26. The problem with that is, and I'm interested to get your take on this as a whole, what are your thoughts, your morals on trading some of these Cardinal premium picks for proven players, just in general?
It depends. 27, I've gone up and down so many times with that where it's like, can you get a corner at 27? Can you get a pass rusher at 27? Probably not, because they're expensive. Like, the positions the Cardinals need, if they haven't gotten paid yet, who they're trading for, if it's, young guys, things like that, or guys who just got a contract, all of them are expensive premium positions on defense. Corner, interior defensive line, if you're really good in pass rushing. So, you could look at, I would assume that you'd agree with me here, but I'm not sure. Like, ain't no way they're drafting all three of those third-round picks. Something's going to happen.
I think that's the sweet spot. If you could get a proven player, maybe not a star, but like I've used this example, I've kind of heard this in the tea leaves, like they want to trade for a veteran corner that's maybe out of the timeline of the team that they're with, that's expensive, that could come here and be CB1, because it sounds like they don't love the free agent cornerback market. And I think there's a better chance that they spend on the defensive line and then trade for a corner. And yes, absolutely. Like those 3 third-rounders, one of those can go to somebody for, like if Darius Slay became available again, or somebody of that caliber under 30 that's making a lot of money for a team that either has new people involved. There's a ton of those guys around the NFL. The kid out of New Orleans, Marshawn Lattimore. Like he's somebody I think the Cardinals will have interest in if he becomes available.
The one thing, like the greatest unknown in this is how many Philadelphia players are coming here.
Sure.
Like, is Fletcher Cox going to play 2 years here and retire here? Is Brandon Graham going to come here? How much are they gone from the Nick Sirianni project and say, you know what? I remember when I enjoyed playing defense, and it was with the 2 guys who are now the head coach and defensive coordinator. I'm not saying it's going to happen by any stretch. I'm not saying they're going to give Fletcher Cox $15 million at 33. That's not what I'm saying. This can be whatever Jonathan Gannon and Monti want it to be. And if they need solid guys that they trust in the locker room and on the field who can fit immediately into this scheme, that could be some of the jet fuel the Cardinals could use. And maybe Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox aren't the greatest examples because they are older, but they have been very good at their position for a very long time.
Listen, if they did 1-year flyer contracts, everybody give me grief. Like, I'm not saying trade a third for Slay. I know he's old at 33, but that kind of like somebody, when the Eagles got him, he was in his like late 20s, early 30s, and they traded a 3rd-round pick for him. That kind of trade. But I'm with you. I think there's a better chance maybe if they add from Philadelphia, they add from the back seven. Here, like Derek Barnett was available, And I know he wasn't like a game breaker. He went to Houston, and I pushed for this, and Bo kind of dismissed it. And he was great for them. He was a key cog down the stretch that helped them win games. Gannon Ossenfort had a chance to take him with the pass rush completely invisible and said no. So listen, a lot of pressure is going to be on them to improve that defensive front seven. And I think the mindset in free agency will be, we're going to spend wisely, but at the same time, we know we can't sit back and let free agency come to us.
Well,
like,
yeah,
they're going to need to be on those first couple waves.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll need to double up in the draft. Like, this isn't like, sign free agent defensive tackle, and then you don't have to do that in the draft. Like, the Cardinals need a strength, Johnny. They anywhere aside from tight end and running back and quarterback. Safety. They need a strength and safety.
Yeah.
They don't have a strength. So I use this as an exercise. Say they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, fine. Say they draft a corner in the second, and the first, or the third round, fine. If they draft a corner at 27 and their first pick in the second round, fine. It doesn't matter. Like, as long as you're not drafting a running back, a quarterback, or or a tight end, everything is on the table. And I know you made you did a mock draft with two wide receivers in the first round. It's like, that wouldn't be the most insane thing that's happened to the Cardinals in the last decade.
For sure.
And it would work, and it would benefit this team, even though I know it was an exercise to piss off Bo, I'm sure.
All right, everybody wants to ask you about Marvin Harrison Jr., your stance on that. You've been very outspoken. We're gonna get to that here in a second. But first, I want to tell everybody, if you're looking for money, if you're going to the big game, first of all, congratulations. Vegas is a fantastic place to watch the big game. But if you need a little extra coin off of those big game tickets, we're going to hook you up with our friends at the Game Time app right now. Use the bonus code Vegas100 for $100 off the big game. Like, listen, I don't know about you, I would love an extra $100 to play around in Las Vegas. Am I right? And again, if you're not going to the big game and you just want some money off, we've got concerts. Of course, the Suns right now, they're playing good basketball. $20 off using the bonus code PHNX. I do not buy my tickets anywhere else since I started using Game Time. Since I came to the Valley, the East Valley, and I'm going to tell you, not only can they do concerts, playoff games, they've got parking passes, they've got flash deals. Like, if you ever seen those flash deals on like other websites where it's like, right this last minute, lowest price, that's what the Game Time can get you. They also do event cancellation protection, job loss protection. It's fantastic. It's the only place. It's a call to action. Take your buddies out. Take your friends out. And if you're going to the big game, take $100 off the big game ticket with Vegas 100. Terms and conditions apply. All you got to do, download the Game Time app today. And again, if you're not going to the big game, you're watching it on TV. If you got a concert the Saturday before, $20 off that purchase. PHNX is your bonus code. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. From saving money on tickets to maybe saving money on your next home purchase. This is the only Cardinal show this week of Senior Bowl coverage. Let me repeat that. This is the only Cardinal show this week that is securing you Senior Bowl coverage with our guy, Coach Starks at Coach Stark Homes. He is the president, Chris Stark is, of Coach Stark Homes with West USA Realty, a high school basketball coach and an educator for over 20 years before real estate. He's got 12 years as a varsity coach. He's embedded here in the Valley. He values relationships, and he's an avid listener of the podcast, and he's going to help you. If you're in the market for a home, I need help. I need to help navigate these rates. I need to know who to go with. I need people I can trust. Coach Starks is going to help you. He's worked with clients from Buckeye to Maricopa to Tucson. It is a hotbed now. I follow every Instagram account when it comes to homes, when to buy, what to do. This is the guy to get hooked up with. His team right now, first class. Get a hold of Coach Starks today. He's going to help you out. His number, I'm going to give it to you, 623-695-3929, or you can check him out online, CoachStarkHomes.com. Follow him. He's an avid Cardinal fan at Coach Stark Homes. Everybody wants the cohesiveness of a local guy that's a Cardinal fan, that's a football fan, that speaks their language. That's what Coach Starks can do. Is Alex Clancy speaking my language? Because I'm ride or die Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 4. Okay, I'm going to give you the floor. So you've been on the record. You're a little iffy on what the Cardinals should do. In a perfect world, what would you do at pick 4 for the Arizona Cardinals in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft?
Disclaimer: if the Cardinals draft Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm going to high five the next person closest to me. Okay.
Fair.
So let's not, this isn't an anti-Marvin Harrison Jr. stance at all. Because, I mean, he could be, a transcendent next Larry Fitzgerald. All of it. I get it all.
Yeah.
The Cardinals wide receiver room, in my humblest of opinion, Johnny Venerable, is like the third biggest need, even with how it sits now. Okay. The interior defensive line is god-awful. The pass rush is non-existent, and it's only less non-existent than every single cornerback in that room not named Garrett Williams when he's healthy. So what and the offensive line too. So what the Cardinals, this is the final dagger from Steve Keim, where I've said for 6 years, 7 years, the Cardinals have never eaten their vegetables. Ever. They've never done the right thing. They haven't done Tristan Wirfs or CeeDee Lamb in that draft. They didn't draft Greg Newsome. They drafted Zaven Collins. They didn't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So now the perfect scenario for me would be to find a team who would trade up to that spot. Like ideal in a vacuum scenario. Jim Harbaugh may want to trade up and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Like we don't know how people see Malik Neighbors, how close he is to Marvin Harrison Jr. really when push comes to shove. Because Jim Harbaugh is going to want to make a stand. Keenan Allen's getting older. Mike Williams is always hurt. They don't have a wide receiver one there. What if a future first is worth it for Jim Harbaugh to move up, splash play, first draft as a head coach, and the Cardinals can move back one spot, draft Joe Alt, and have a future first? Like, that's ideal for me. That's probably not going to happen, but I still think that the Cardinals need to look at different spots to potentially trade down, draft the left tackle of the future if they're going to keep Paris Johnson to the right, draft the best pass rusher, something that will make this team immediately better on interior or on either of the offensive or defensive lines, personally, as unsexy it is. But if they draft them, and it's going to be awesome. Okay, but the Larry Fitzgerald held that work out not well. It didn't work. Like he's one of the greatest wide receivers in the history of football. They got everything else wrong for the majority of his time here. So it worked great for us, but not necessarily for the team for team building purposes, even though, obviously he's one of the greatest ever.
I respect your opinion. This is why we bring Alex, among others, onto this podcast. I am a huge advocate in taking in difference of opinion discussions, multiple podcasts. The more coverage and the more insight we can have on this team, the better. And I am with you. A lot of people don't know this, even though I'm the resident of the Marvin Harrison Jr. fan club on this show. Joe Alt is my second favorite player in this class. He has been. And so I think you're going to probably get your wish if Marvin goes third overall. I think the Cardinals will trade down at that point. Yeah. And it was interesting. I was watching the Lions game before they blew it yesterday. And they have 2 first-round offensive tackles. And I would say Paris Johnson Jr. projects to be very much on Taylor Decker's level as a left tackle, right tackle, and Penei Sewell. Can you get Alu Fashion or Joel to perform like that? That's asking a lot, but that's what you're hopefully projecting to. And they beat the holy hell out of the Niner front and dominated them on the ground. And I watched that yesterday, and I said, okay, that's enticing to me. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown late. They have a phenom tight end, as do the Arizona Cardinals. David Montgomery projects very much like James Conner. You could get another back. Like, I can wrap my head around it. I also think, the Detroit Lions didn't have a chance to draft Jamar Chase, so they took Penei Sewell, right? So if the Cardinals don't have a chance to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm with you. Like, they need to consider that. And I go back and forth. Like, I have legitimate concerns, Alex. Not that this team can't find one later. If you take a tackle in the top 10, whether it's at 4 or you trade back, what is going to be left at the receiver room at pick 27 and 35? That's scary because I look at every mock draft, all the receivers are gone by 15, 17, 20. Whereas there are a bunch of tackles still available at 27 and 35. So while I disagree, I do think that it's a good problem to have. The Cardinals have put themselves into getting an impact player. There's not a defensive lineman that's worth the 4th overall pick. It's going to be either a tackle or a receiver. But at the end of the day, I can wrap my head around trading back. Now, my only pushback would be, and I see some of this in the chat, is you just got burned with trading back last year in the sense that we thought that Houston pick would be better. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that they got more for it, and they're going to reap the benefits of that. And 27 could be a damn good player still. but it would be hard for this fan base even to trade back with like the Chargers or somebody like that. Like those teams, I think are going to turn it around next year. So at this point, it's like you've endured this kind of season. You've won 8 games in 2 years. Like your fan base deserves a player of the caliber of Marvin Harrison Jr., in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's right. I get it. I'm a huge Troy Franklin guy who was mocking at the end of the first round, the stud from Oregon. This is what it comes down to, and this is what Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon know because of their extensive history with the scouting, etc. What gap is wider? Marvin Harrison Jr. with the rest of the receivers, and Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu and the rest of the offensive linemen. Because that's going to be the determining factor. Like, if they think they can get a receiver at 27 that is going to be 80% of what Marvin Harrison is, and you can get a bookend tackle, right or left side, depending on where they do with Paris Johnson Jr., and you're set and forget for the next decade, that's why I have trouble just going to sleep at night saying, oh, it's Marvin Harrison Jr., that's it. Like, you got to think about these things. When it's so obvious, you got to think about it. Now, and the other thing, offensive linemen, I call it the Nate Solder effect. A lot of high-paid offensive linemen in free agency fail. A lot. Yeah. And it's very difficult to stomach that when you're really trying to rebuild here and you bring in a guy to play left tackle and he ain't it. Because if he were it, the team would retain him that he had. And the whole thing about Penny Sewell and Jamar Chase, dude, it's like Joe Burrow's been hurt 3 times since Jamar Chase got drafted. It's like, cool. They made a Super Bowl once. And what happened? He didn't have enough time to throw the ball to Jamar Chase after getting sacked 8 times the game before to get to the Super Bowl. Like, it's not an exact science here.
It's not. And Kyler Murray, there's a tweet out today. I didn't have it to get it in time for the show, but there's a tweet out today. I can't remember who put it out. It's very pro Kyler Murray and how dominant, borderline dominant the Cardinals were when he came back and how well he was playing toward the stretch. Well, he had 2 first-round tackles, and I thought his protection was solid and his efficiency benefited from that. So they need to have a contingency plan on what they're going to do now with Humphreys gone. Because I think very much like DJ Humphreys was going to play left tackle for this team again in 2024 had he not blown out his Achilles. I think his career is done with the Cardinals now. So it's like Kelvin Beachum can start a couple games here and there. I think you move Paris over to left tackle unless you take Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt. But 100%, you cannot dismiss the fact that number 1, Kyler Murray is undersized, and number 2, he's been hurt. And so you need ample protection for him. And I'm with you. Like, I don't think the solution is let's sign a guy in free agency. I think the best case scenario for this team is you get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 and you get a Jordan Morgan or somebody who projects to be a plus right tackle at 27. Kelvin Beachum goes into camp, the starter at right tackle. We've seen him do it. Let the rookie earn that spot. Paris moves over to the left side. You probably have a couple bumps the first couple weeks of the season. You outgrow that, and then you benefit from it, Halloween onward. Like that to me is probably the best case scenario. But again, they're at the mercy now, and that's why this pick 27 is very difficult to stomach, Alex. Like, I see people in the chat, they should use a 3rd rounder to trade up. I have no issue with that. If they want to move from 27 to like 21, 22 and jet set one of their thirds, that to me is go get your guy. And Ossenfort, by the way, did that last year going up and getting Paris again.
The Stockholm syndrome is almost worn off with Steve Keim. It's almost gone, where it's like, can I trust this guy? I really trusted Steve Keim even though he had no business doing it. Like, Monti Ossenfort is a madman.
Yeah.
3 to 12 to 6. Not giving up the future first that he just attained. Not giving up their 2nd round pick. He gave Houston 2nd round pick he had for 3 minutes to move back up to 6. The fact that they've got picks not only for 2024, but 2025. Like, it could be but before you get to the draft, I feel like we're going to know the blueprint or the big board really going into the draft when they add pieces during free agency. It's like, okay, well, they added 2 corners. Okay, you're probably not looking at Kool-Aid McKinstry at 27 anymore. You're probably looking at, a different position. If they bring in an offensive lineman who's a veteran, that a team-friendly deal like Kelvin Beachum was, that was one of Steve Keim's best signings. He gave him, $4 million or for 2 years? Like, it was insane. A lot more is going to become clear after free agency. But yeah, listen, draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and then you know what? Go. Yeah. Trade away your future 2nd. Trade away
whatever you want.
Yeah, because they're going to have so much money in free. if you nail the draft, it doesn't matter what future picks you have. That's, collateral to be able to go and get, as you mentioned, just go get a guy that you want this year. You have no idea what next year is going to bring.
Don, $1.99. Thank you so much, Don. Paris at left tackle, get a right tackle at 27. I would be shocked if Paris Johnson Jr. does not move to left tackle this offseason. I know he's studying Lane Johnson at right tackle. Paris Johnson Jr., number one, projected to be a left tackle. You just so happen to have DJ Humphries. He projected to be a left tackle. I also think, no disrespect to right tackles, but Alex, they traded the 34th overall pick to go back up and get Paris. I don't know if you invest the pick 6 and pick 34 on a right tackle, somebody who doesn't protect Kyler Murray's blind side, especially now with what's gone on with Humphries. I think we're going to open up off-season workouts and he's going to be on the left side and they'll be better for it long term. That doesn't mean they still can't get a first round tackle, but to your point, they're going to be showing the tea leaves here this offseason. Speaking of showing tea leaves, we round up most recent mock drafts on this show, and it's been very pro Marvin Harrison Jr. Did that continue today? This is from CBS Sports, fresh off the championship Sunday. Josh Edwards, the top 5. Caleb Williams, number 1, no shock, goes to Chicago. Washington, this is the shock. Jaden Daniels, 2nd overall. Is there real momentum here? You love to see that. Drake May, of course, falling in the Patriots' lap. And then back-to-back picks, MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Brock Bowers at 5 to the Chargers. I disagree. I think Jim Harbaugh 100% is going to go with an offensive lineman. You look at his track record, and he's got personnel control now. There has not been a mock draft that I've seen, Alex Clancy, that has had Marvin Harrison Jr. drop beyond pick 4. It does feel like now we're pending combine offseason workouts. Like, do we already know who the major players are in these top 3 to 4 picks, in your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, all offseason, and I saw you tweet about it a couple days ago. The Cardinals needed a third quarterback somewhere to make this happen, and they found it immediately. Like Jaden Daniels, and we'll see what happens during his pro day. I don't know if he's going to be at the combine. I don't know why he'd need to. His stock's never been higher after winning the Heisman, kind of by default, because everybody else kind of fell by the wayside. The fact that there isn't a 4th quarterback, it's selfish and it's greedy, but you just hope that there's a chance that there's a 4th quarterback. But even with that, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. is just a guy, and that's fine. Again, he's going to make the team better. Him and Trey McBride. The only another issue I have is do you need a wide receiver 1 in Drew Petzing's offense? Do you absolutely need one? Do you need wide receiver by committee and Trey McBride and 2 good running backs in Kyler Murray? I don't know. And who knows how long Drew Petzing's going to be here for, but still. I think if Malik Neighbors was the number 1 receiver in this class and he was the quintessential top 5 pick, I think we can have that conversation. Yeah. And you just say, you know what? I'm going to go tackle. Yeah. Marvin transcends this draft. He would have been the top player in last year's draft. You get these guys that come along every 5 to 7 years. You just no matter our needs, and the Cardinals have a need at receiver, we have to take them. And I believe that that's where they have MHJ slotted. Fair. That's fine. And you know what? And it's going to be great. And he's going to wear 18 in red, and it's going to be a lot better than AJ Green. It's going to be better.
It's going to be, And it again, he's got somebody endorsing him, not that he needs it, in Paris Johnson Jr.
Yeah.
It took forever. The Cardinals finally put 2 and 2 together and said, if we draft these players from these major universities at premium positions, it'll probably work out. Tackle, receiver, pass rusher from Alabama, Ohio State. It's Steve Keim going undersized, small school guys, now premium positions. It's hey, guess what? That didn't work out. So back-to-back picks from Ohio State. It's a nice way to be living. Speaking of nice way to be living, check out our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals and the Venerable household for more than 84 years. Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. I was bebopping around town after my son's flag football game on Saturday. I said, I need to take some cash out to pay the babysitter. And guess what? Desert Financial Credit Union on the spot, just down the street. Tons of locations help you get your money fast and efficiently. Checkings, savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit card, investment options, and more. And the best part is you can represent the Red Sea with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. Show your team spirit today. Open up a free checking account online and get Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. The Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card is available. DesertFinancial.com/Cardinals to get started. And if you're waiting to get started with our friends at BetMGM, what are you waiting for? You missed out on Championship Sunday. Now, my parlay busted. I'm working on a new BetMGM Bet 5, get 158 parlay. I think I'm going to go the under in the big game, as well as I like the Chiefs money line. I'm not going to go against Patrick Mahomes, at least not today. You can't go against our guys and gals at BetMGM Bet 5. Get 158 with the bonus code PHNX. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on your iOS, Android device, or check them out, betmgm.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 in your newly created account. Place a wager in any amount at least $5 on a standard odds price. You're going to get 158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. Again, what are you waiting for? Check out the show notes for full details. Now listen to my guy Damon Dog talk about it in the disclaimer.
778 HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Senior Bowl week. Keep it locked in here with Alex Clancy, Johnny Venerable today, Damon Dog, and Bo Brock en route to Mobile for Senior Bowl coverage. Don, another super chat, $1.99. Alt or Alu Fashnu or Marvin Harrison Jr. Kyler is a happy man regardless, Alex. I would say Kyler Murray would probably be happy with any of those selections. Uh-oh, you're muted, my guy.
Didn't want to mess up the live read. Yeah, he's got a new head coach, a new GM. I think he's happy anyways. I've never seen him smile more since he became an Arizona Cardinal. So, yeah, I mean, this is truly a choose-your-own adventure for Monti Ossenfort. You have the Play-Doh, and you could build whatever you want. There's no pressure. It's just, okay, go do it.
Let's do it.
You'll be happy no matter what.
I'm happy Senior Bowl week, which I think is really the kickoff of draft season. Like, we've been doing mock drafts on this show, Alex, since October because, well, the Cardinals had one win before Kyler Murray returned. So it seemed very appropriate. But now, I mean, we're talking about hand sizes. That gets me fired up. We're talking about physicality, and we're talking about the Senior Bowl. Anybody on your radar? I know, Michael Wilson was a Senior Bowl darling of the Cardinals this time last year. A lot of people didn't know who he was. Then, boom, the Cardinals make him a top 100 selection. Is there any player or position that you're watching closely for the Cardinals this week?
Yeah, there's two names. I'm glad you brought this up. So, Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, 6'3", 1,300 receiving yards, only had 7 touchdowns. The dude is shot out of a cannon in space. He's big. I feel like we're going to be in the generation of big wide receivers for the Cardinals moving forward with your gadget guys that they already have on the roster. And then the other guy who's mocked to go in the top 96 is Ennis Rakestraw, cornerback from Missouri. He's not huge, but the dude is an absolute baller on the field. He's a glue guy who can make impact right away. And the Cardinals need as many of those guys as possible. And then obviously Byron Murphy II. See what he can do, see if he's a guy that'll drop. He's a very popular name mocked around the Cardinals picks, in the third round. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys, but you always get those diamonds in the rough. And I trust Monti Ossenfort implicitly to be able to find said diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Senior Bowl last year was respectfully kind of looked at as a down year for the Senior Bowl, frankly. And this year, it could not be more opposite. So ESPN took a poll of how many Senior Bowl first rounders they would be. So last year, I think there were only 2 to 3 first rounders that came from the Senior Bowl. This year, they said as many as 9.5 over under could go in the first round. Obviously, you just mentioned Byron Murphy II, who I think is going to be a top 20 pick. I'm with you. I love our friends at PFF. He's always available on day 2 of the draft. No. He's a dominant player. I think he's going to go in the first round. I would have no issue if the Cardinals loved him at 27. Troy Fatanu from Washington, I think is going to be a first rounder. Michael Penix and Bo Nix could definitely go in the first round. There were only 2 first rounders from the Senior Bowl. That has a chance to quadruple this year. So it just shows you the competition. And this is where Monti Ossenfort played his cards right, no pun intended. The competition this draft season is infinitely more than last year. These guys, Alex, are going to the Senior Bowl to distinguish themselves so that they can secure a high pick. Last year, it felt very much like we were checking boxes. Like, okay, we know there's probably like 10 to 12 true first rounders, and then there's a drop off. It's a reason the Cardinals traded up for Paris Johnson Jr., the quintessential top left tackle. This year, it's like, we know who the blue chip of the blue chips are, the quarterbacks, the receivers, the tackles. Then there's a group of like 40 guys that could go, could be perceived from pick 15 to like 50. And if you're trying to make your money as a draft pick, like, you're in Mobile this week.
Yeah. It's so wild. You see it a lot more in basketball because you have the one and done rule where it's like, you want a 19-year-old who's going to be a project for 3 years, or do you want a senior who's going to come in and be able to ball right away and play defense at the NBA level? That's kind of what you're looking at with the Senior Bowl. With NIL, people stay in college a little bit longer. You can make some cheese during your stay. And then you have these guys who can come in and be ready a lot further along than a guy who was only in college football for a couple of years. Now, transferring a bunch of times obviously compounds that, but Michael Wilson came in. The game was never too fast for him from the jump. He got his opportunities. He got on pace with Joshua Dobbs, and then it took a couple games with Kyler Murray. But when they were there and he was healthy, he was ready. And the Cardinals need guys who are ready. So I think looking at a guy who's, heaven forbid, 23 instead of 21, and you have a guy who can come in and maybe shorten the curve, the learning curve at the NFL level, it would massively benefit the Cardinals. So they should definitely be, and I know that there are a lot of coaches for the Cardinals out there, because you need ready-made guys who are going to be able to make an impact in 2024. 2023, pass.
Yeah, the middle of the roster needs a lot of bodies. They need guys that, as cliche as it sounds, like the next Michael Wilsons of, defensive line. Is D West in the chat saying third round Michael Hall Jr. is still there. Would you take him? He's a defensive lineman, D tackle, Ohio State. Absolutely. If he tests well and they think he fits his system, like if you play for a Power 5 conference and your school is of relevance, in my opinion, and you stood out and you test well and project well, like, those guys are always going to be my first priority. I know Eli's kind of joking around, no more Byron Murphy. He's like, Byron Murphy was overdrafted, but he's still a good NFL player. Byron Murphy the second is a dominant defensive lineman. Like, Byron Murphy, the corner, was never a dominant player at the collegiate level. And it was also hampered by, he was drafted over Deebo Samuel and AJ Brown. Like that, if Byron Murphy goes in the third round, that's a much better pick. But I am bullish on this class. I'm bullish on this game. I think, again, we've got coverage this week. This is going to be a week, as you mentioned, Alex, the Cardinals are going to get their hands on everybody not named Marvin Harrison Jr. and Joe Alt. Like, this is where conceivably pick 27 through the end of day 3 could be fortified. And if you go to the Senior Bowl, number one, I think you have a competitive advantage. You're trying to help yourself, and you're not afraid of exposing yourself. And also, you're there to showcase to the, Monti Ossenforts of the world, like, I'm a fit for what you want to do. I mean, say what you want about Steve Keim. It is the greatest parting gift that man ever gave this organization. Trey McBride somehow fell to them in the second round. I mean, their best 2 pass catchers came from the Senior Bowl each of these last 2 years.
Yeah. It's, and with that, like, because there's so much meat in the sandwich, as it were, in the middle rounds, that just lends me to think, Johnny, like, if I were to ask you right now, if the Cardinals, is Monti Ossenfort more likely to trade up or trade back from 27? And say, if they didn't trade for a player, like, second round is wide open.
I think the only reason I would say trade up is he would like to keep that 5th-year option intact on that said player. Yeah. I mean, you could trade back from 27 to like 30 or 31. I think they want that extra year of financial flexibility. I think there's a better chance trading down from pick 35, like they did last year with Tennessee. I would stick and pick or trade up from 27. And then at the start of round 2, take phone. Maybe Michael Penix is available. Take phone calls. Let people come up. They did that with Will Levis last year. And by the way, they got B.J. Ojulari, and now Tennessee's pick is top 70. So in the third round. So so many different avenues they could go.
It's there's no wrong way to do it unless you draft a quarterback at 4. Like this is going to make the team. Like, I was thinking last week I did a show and I was like, how many players are actually going to be on the roster 100% in 2024? Like 20?
Yeah, the rookies from last year and the made men of Kyler Murray and James
Thompson,
Conner,
Buda Baker.
Yeah,
like, and
Jalen Thompson.
I mean, like, very few. So if it depends on what they want to do, if they want to go out in free agency and make a splash, or if they want to turn those 6 first, top 95 picks into 9 and draft guys in that, in that arena and be able to just be like, okay, this is the foundation for the future. Go get them, kids. I mean, it's going to be fascinating. Or you could just stick and pick and then use this year and next year to build it over 2 drafts. I mean, it's really going to be fascinating to see.
Monti Ossenfort, Cardinal fans, going to be eating good. You can eat good with our friends at Some Burrows. Check them out here in the Valley. Fantastic selection. Great taco bar to hang out with your friends. Margaritas to go. And their guac, it's mouth-watering. They've been a staple here since 1986 throughout the Valley and Flagstaff. So you're never far from a delicious time with our friends at Some Burrow. Best part of moving to the East Valley, I got one right down the street. My family and I visit regularly. You can check them out locally or visit them at someburrows.com to find one closest to you. And if you're looking for gas at a premium, not a premium price, but a premium inner circle program, check our friends out at circlek.com/store-locator. It's America's thirst stop. Save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Becoming an inner circle member was the best decision I could make when I talk about how often I fill up my car, and if I want snacks at every free 6 selection of pizza, coffee, ice cold fountain drinks, and more. I like membership programs that give me stuff for free, and I like those programs to also be free. And that's what Circle K's Inner Circle is. Again, check them out today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for more details. You guys are crushing it in the chat. Leave a like on this video. Mr. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, where can the peeps find your stuff? Doing great work. Did we lose him last segment? We lost some producer Jacob? What happened? You know what he said? He said, you know what? I've gone out on a high note on my takes today. And he said, bon voyage. That's all right. Clancy, crushing it. Check him out. Locked On Cardinals, wherever you get your podcast. Check us out. Go PHNX.com. How about this? Solo Johnny today for the last couple minutes. You guys deserve it. Deserve a diehard membership. Go PHNX.com. Become a diehard. If you haven't been in on our diehard Q&A, it is off the chain every single Thursday. There's producer Jacob crushing it at his house. What's going on?
I'll hang out. How's it going, Johnny?
Give us your draft. Give us a hot take on the NFL draft. Give us a hot
take on the NFL draft. It's not here soon enough.
Oh man, you're preaching to the choir, brother. Hell yes. Everybody like this video. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. Subscribe to PHNX Cardinals wherever you get your podcast. If you are not tapped in to what we got going on, Bo and I dropped an audio-only podcast that landed last night at like midnight. Every single day, just about, you're going to be able to open your podcast feed and find live work, archive work from Bo and I and the rest of the team here at PHNX Sports. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Become a diehard. Pick up a free hat and or t-shirt every single year. Guess what? Tomorrow, Bo Brock, he's back. Damon Dog, both he and Damon, live from Mobile, Alabama. Reese's Senior Bowl, wire-to-wire coverage. Check us out on social at Johnny Venerable, PHNX_Cardinals, at Bo Brock. Everybody, have a happy Monday. We'll see ya mañana. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.